Okay. Hello, this is August 17th, 2026, and I'm Town Moderator Adam Dash. I want to start tonight's committee applicant interviews with a short explanation and an introduction. First, I want to thank all the applicants for stepping up and offering to help the town. Belmont cannot operate without volunteers. I think you'll find public service to be a rewarding and interesting experience. The interview process will be that I will name a candidate, then promote them to panelist, and then interview that candidate one-on-one. I ask that each candidate turn on their cameras during the interview. Don't worry, I'm not going to take your background or fashion sense into account when making the appointments. It'll just be me asking questions of each candidate individually. For candidates who applied for more than one committee, I may ask additional questions designed for each of those committees, depending on how the answers go. Each committee candidate will be asked the same questions as every other candidate for that committee. This is done to make everything fair. The questions were developed by me with the help of the Moderator's Advisory Council, and I want to thank the council for their help and for those of you members of the council who are here tonight. The order of the interviews tonight will be as follows for the following committees. Actually, tonight, everybody is up for the warrant committee, and 2 people have also applied for bylaw review. We're going to go in the order, and I know everybody's here. So Brian Curtis for warrant committee, Max Hoyer, warrant committee and bylaw review committee, Jonathan Hakeem, warrant committee, Kevin Smith, warrant committee, Kathy Cohane, warrant committee, Marie Warner, warrant committee, and Tim Fallon for both warrant committee and bylaw review committee. So please be ready to go when I call on you. Expect each interview to be in the 15 to 20 minute range. Some have been longer, some have been shorter. I ask that answers be limited to 3 minutes for each question. The interviews that took place on August 10th and 12th are currently posted online, so you can watch those, Belmont Media Center and on the Moderator's Advisory Council webpage of the town website. There's one additional person, Anthony Fitzpatrick, who is for the Bylaw Review Committee, who we're going to take up on August 19th at the start of the Moderator Advisory Council meeting that night at 7 p.m. on the 19th due to a scheduling conflict with Mr. Fitzpatrick. And that will be the end of the interviews. I will then not take any action on the appointments until after August 26th to allow the public to send me their comments about the candidates. You may email comments to me at moderator@belmont-ma.gov. That email address is on the town moderator page of the town's website. I will then make the appointments by August 31st and explain who was appointed and why. This meeting is being live broadcast and recorded, and the recording for this meeting, like the others, will be posted online on the Belmont Media Center and on the Town of Belmont websites for future viewing. That said, applicants should just relax, be themselves, and answer the questions as best they can. This is not a public hearing, and there will be no public comment taken tonight. This will just be between the applicants and the moderator. So, without further ado, we will begin the interviews. Starting with Brian Curtis for the warrant committee, and I will promote Brian Curtis. Good evening, Brian.
I don't see myself on screen, Adam. Are you sure that you promoted me?
I promoted you and I'm looking at you.
Oh, all right.
And you are listed as a panelist, so
Excellent.
I'm good if you're good.
Maybe I'm just looking at a confusing Zoom view. I didn't see myself. I'm here.
That's fine. I see you, and that's all. And the public can see you, and I think that's all that really matters.
Excellent. Hello, public.
Excellent. All right. So, kicking off this evening, can you please provide some background on your education, work, and volunteer experience, which you believe would help the warrant committee, including financial skills you have?
Sure. Well, let's see. I have been a Belmont resident since 1984, so I think it's actually that's a big part of my background that can help the committee. I've grown up in the town. My kids grew up in the town. I went to the schools. My kids went through the schools. So I know what Belmont has been. I've seen it evolve and mostly not change. So I think I really have a good sense of the spirit of this town. And that said, I have an eye on the future, and I think it'd be a good steward for the future. As far as skills that can be the most helpful, Probably my technical skills and my background with doing cross-functional work in a large company, um, which I have moved on from that. But yeah, I was a manager in a corporate role for 7-ish years and individual contributor before that. I'm still in tech. I'm actually getting a front row seat to things like what AI can do in terms of business productivity. So, in the event that anything like that rears its head, I think I know what I'm talking about there. Uh, I've kind of just gotten back into public service, as you're probably aware, just joined the town meeting this year, and I was energized by that and happy to participate. So, um, yeah, actually, beyond that, I've also, prior to my tech career, I worked in several different small businesses in a couple different industries. So I know a lot of our town is full of small businesses, and so I think I have a sense of what life is like in one of those, and can relate there. So I think I can relate to a lot of different folks in this town in relevant ways.
And what do you see as the town's biggest fiscal challenges, and how can the warrant committee help address them?
Hmm. Well, I would have to get more, truthfully get more informed, and that's what I would hope to do about the town's fiscal challenges. But I think there's a lot of demands to keep this town to be a really premium place to live, which it has been. There's a reason people want to live here. And I think just what I've seen in the short period of time on town meeting, as well as my life here, is there's a never-ending appetite for money for all sorts of different projects. And there's a lot of things that need to be done. You can't really just lean too heavily into any one area. There's a lot of yeah, there's a lot of demands on the town's finances, and probably that outstrips the revenue. And at the same time, I think yeah, at the risk of repeating myself, I think it's important to keep a lot of these different demands in mind. And I think it is important that we spend money on things because that's the way to keep the town what it has been.
And how would you describe your methods of working and communicating in a group or committee setting?
Well, let's see. First off, I try to really understand my role. Even if that role is vague or squishy or changes, I try to keep a lot of self-awareness about where I fit into the picture, and how to best contribute from there. I have had a lot of chance to do that in my various things I've done in my work life. I have a big family too that also runs we have a property that's managed through a trust and has a uh, close to 30 trustee or close to 30 beneficiaries that all have to negotiate solutions and keep the place standing. So I've got a good sense of how to fit into a group like that. And then yeah, once I do know my territory, I'm gonna try to learn the what am I trying to learn the direction from whoever's in charge. What are we trying to accomplish, and then lean into getting that done through my part. And if guiding the situation is what is needed of me, I'm happy to do that too. Happy to provide leadership and also happy to follow it.
How would you go about making unpopular decisions and dealing with conflicts?
Dealing with conflicts, I would say, I mean, it depends on what the conflict is about, but conflicts that end up being more on the interpersonal side, or sort of people, for any number of reasons, getting ruffled feathers. I think a lot of the time it's hearing people out properly, making sure people do have a chance to speak, or to be heard somehow. And then a lot of the time, I think a situation can be, if it's handled gracefully, you can usually talk a conflict through to some sort of a resolution that um, suits people. I think if there's, unpopular decisions, that comes back to, really trying to have a sense of priorities. And yeah, sometimes you do have to make a tough decision in the name of what your actual priorities are. So when the time comes, I can do such things, and I'll always try to do it with as much tact and sensitivity to the situation as possible.
How do you think the warrant committee can best communicate with and advise the town in the short and the long term?
Well, that's a good question, because I think that um, it's it's clearly difficult to get the level of information and detail out there to people in the town and get them to participate, get them to engage with it. Maybe that's a good thing sometimes if people are not meddling either. But I think in terms of, I think there's the obvious answers like, so, active social media channels. I believe on posting things to the town website, but I also know a lot of that gets done. I think that uh, as difficult as it can be to open these doors of conversation, it's kind of important to talk amongst your own sets of friends. I think most people who would be on this committee will know people around town. And take a little bit of social time sort of socializing the ideas of the town government and the warrant committee among that. And I think just yeah, helping people on a slightly more informal level understand what's going on.
Is there anything else you'd like to add?
uh Yeah, I
About
guess I
yourself?
did want to say, yeah. I did want to just say that when I went to town meeting and I looked around there, I recognized a lot of people that I'd either known for a long time, some very good friends of mine, but also maybe parents of people I knew growing up or names I'd heard, and recognize how the service that a lot of people have put into the town. I have a lot of respect for that, a lot of admiration for the people currently serving. I really like how the business was done by the various elected and appointed town administrators and everybody. And I also have an eye on the future. So I think that it's always important to keep pushing ourselves forward. We can't stand back and say this is a great place and let it stagnate. But so I think I can work with people and in a way that helps us for the future. And that is all I'd like to say.
Great. Well, thanks for coming tonight. I appreciate it, Brian. Thanks so much.
Thanks for having me, Adam.
And I will put you back. Okay. So next up, we're going to have Max Hoyer.
Hey Adam, can you see me?
Oh,
Okay.
I can hear you. I don't see you.
Oh no. Okay.
There you go.
Much better.
There you are. All right.
I wasn't yet a panelist. That was the problem.
It's, how technology goes. So,
Yeah.
but so far, these interviews have all gone very tech smooth. So
No,
don't
all
slow
good.
down.
All good.
All right. So, candidate for warrant committee. Can you please provide some background on your education, work, and volunteer experience, which you believe would help the warrant committee, including financial skills you have?
Sure. So I'm a corporate attorney, and actually the impetus for my application was your letter about the need for attorney representation on the warrant committee, and I believe the bylaw committee. I've been practicing for about 15 years in corporate law firms and more recently large companies, primarily in the life sciences space, which is what brought me up to the Belmont area from New York. But before law school, I actually worked as a financial journalist as well. So I was have a long and deep exposure to the financial industry, financial concepts, financial transactions. What my work has been focused on, in kind of the current phase of my career is transactional, significant strategic transactions. I've led multi-billion-dollar bond offerings for a large corporation, legal support for that, as well as mergers and acquisitions and strategic partnership licensing agreements, and I've also led financial reporting support from a legal perspective. So I've worked closely with finance teams on financial reporting issues. I'm familiar with accounting principles in a variety of areas. And so I think, to the extent, we're talking about the warrant committee and its role in sort of how to finance Belmont's activities, my experience while admittedly it's not in the public sector, could I think be useful for the town in thinking about methods of financing, and particularly significant transactions that maybe needed in order to achieve our goals. Uh, hmm. I will also say that in my prior career before law school as a journalist, I did cover town government, local government, very familiar with how those organs of important organs of the municipality work and function and the people and personalities. I've seen attended a variety of those meetings in my my journalism phase of my career, and so I think I could potentially add value through that experience as well.
And the same question, I guess, about your background, and you sort of answered this also, but how it relates to the bylaw review committee.
Yeah, so part of my work is in what we call corporate governance or governance. And so, corporations have bylaws and other constituent documents that I've worked on, I've drafted, I've amended, I'm very comfortable with. I think, thinking about what the bylaw committee really does, as I understand it, is it's maybe more analogous to, an agency promulgating regulations or a legislature, issuing laws in the sense that the bylaws are, things that have the force of law to the community, right? Once they're issued, and so I do have some experience, with a variety of forms of legal drafting. Although I'll admit that drafting statutes and regulations in my current private sector role has not not been a focus. I read and interpret them all the time, of course. So. Um,
Sure. I mean, just for the public, I just wanted to say you applied for both warrant committee and bylaw review committee, just for the public's aware. Um,
Thank you.
yeah, no, it's fine. Um, I think I just said warrant earlier, so that's fine. What do you see as the town's biggest fiscal challenges, and how do you think the warrant committee can address them?
So I have to admit, I haven't studied the town's finances in depth, but I've lived in Belmont since 2019. And so I've been through, I think, at least two override votes and familiar with the sort of politics and dialogue that happen around those. And so I think, the biggest challenge for Belmont that I have seen, is, given the sort of lack of a significant commercial tax base, and Massachusetts state laws as to, when you have to put certain tax increases out for referendum, right? Is how do you manage your budget in a way that both, meets the needs and goals of the community, right? While ideally, avoiding having to go out to votes every year, every other year, right? And I think one thing that I have heard is that some budget decisions have been made about relating to funding sources that maybe were never really likely to be long-term funding sources, and then when those funding sources inevitably disappear, then that leaves kind of a hole there. And so I think thinking about how to plan for a budget, with a real long-term view, and not just for the next year. But how are we setting ourselves up for the next 3 years or 5 years or 10 years? I think that's a kind of a mentality that I have and I would bring that's relevant to the challenges that I've seen.
How would you describe your methods of working and communicating in a group or committee setting?
Well, I'm a big subscriber to the you can disagree without being disagreeable principle. I'm also a big believer in the value of substance and in appealing to, you know, people's sense of sort of, logic. There are some things that are truly just sort of values-based decisions, and you can look at them, multiple ways, and reasonable people can come to different decisions. And at the end of the day, I assume the committee will vote, and the majority will will make that decision. But I also believe that people can be persuaded with good arguments. I mean, maybe that's the lawyer in me, but so I do my best to make.
Hope runs eternal. Yes.
Yeah, I do my best in in these situations to make my most sort of polite but persuasive arguments.
How would you go about making unpopular decisions and dealing with conflict?
I think I think unpopular decisions is an area that's particularly important for there to be clear leadership in sort of uh, you know basically standing by those decisions, explaining those decisions, and being accountable for those decisions. And I'm not saying that I would be that leader necessarily, but I do think that I've seen situations where part of the struggle in an unpopular decision situation is when it's not clear who exactly is allowed to make the decision and who is the sort of leader who has ownership of that decision. So I would look to sort of try to foster clarity, I guess, in that area with respect to unpopular decisions. And I think with conflict, it kind of goes back to what I said about, being able to disagree without being disagreeable. I mean, I think, the having attended some local meetings, I know it's not always the case, but I do think, basic standards of professionalism should dictate how people act and how people disagree in the context of municipal deliberation.
Um, so how do you think the Warrant Committee and the Bylaw Review Committee could best communicate with and advise the town?
So I am fortunate that I got to hear the prior interviewees' questions. So I was thinking about it when you
Honestly, I think going later makes it harder.
Yeah, people have already said stuff. No, I know. But I was thinking about it because I mean, I think he's right that there is a lot of information in the local papers and on the website and everything like that. And I think, and maybe it's the former journalist in me, but I think sometimes it's not just sort of what you say, but how you say it. And so I think I would look for opportunities to sort of package the message in a way that is more. I don't know, relatable, understandable, easily digestible to a broad cross section of the community without obviously simplifying it, without misleading anybody. But I do think leveraging people with strong communication skills is a valuable sort of resource that could help.
And how do you think the Bylaw Review Committee should operate when a bylaw change is proposed by a person or by another committee?
Um, well, I think. I have to admit, I'm not entirely up to speed on what the current town sort of protocols require with respect to notice and hearing. But again, as a lawyer, my general sort of operating principle is that people who are bringing things to the government deserve an opportunity to have their proposal heard and considered and also to receive some sort of explanation as to the reasoning for the outcome as sort of a due process concept when you're dealing with your government. Now, whether that means that every proposal that gets sent in needs to have a live public hearing, I wouldn't go that far right now, but I think some form of notice and opportunity to be heard on a proposal when someone makes it in good faith to the government is the sort of uh, best practice.
Is there anything else you want to add about yourself or about the applications or the committees?
No, look, I'm excited to get an interview. I'm if I can, I most of my community involvement has been through my kids, coaching sports teams and stuff. But if I can be helpful to the town because of my, legal abilities, I'm more than happy to dedicate some time to do that. I care about Belmont, and we're definitely the community is important to us.
Great. Well, thanks, Max. I appreciate you coming tonight.
Thanks, Adam. Take care.
Take care. So next up, we're going to have Jonathan Hakeem. I will promote you.
There we go.
Good evening, Jonathan.
Good evening, Adam. Nice to see
I
you.
can see you. I can see you, and I can hear you. So we're working. We're
Okay,
working on all
great.
cylinders.
Very good.
Um, Excellent. Well, thank you for coming. And can you please?
I have to say before you jump in that, just listening to this and to one of the previous sessions, it's impressive what a talented bunch of people we have in Belmont. And so, I think if nothing else, participating in this has made me want to reach out to a few people who I'd like to get to know better. So this has value in and above the warrant committee.
I'm a full service moderator, just trying
Yeah.
to bring people together. Sure.
That's
The
right.
but no, well, it's I always said that on the select board that I think whenever we needed something or on the warrant committee, the world's foremost experts seemed to live in town.
Yeah.
It was uncanny. So
Yeah.
anyway, can you please provide some background on your education, work, and volunteer experience, which you believe would help the warrant committee, including financial skills you have?
Yeah. So I grew up in the UK, but I've lived here in Belmont in the town for just over 20 years. And my kids attended the Belmont Public School. I think I'd highlight really three different areas of work experience, which would be relevant. The first one is journalism, and it's amazing you have two journalists in close succession, Max and myself. So I started my career after college as a financial journalist in London, working for The Economist. And the thing that taught me was really how to explain complex topics to ordinary readers. And I think that's something that is very relevant for the role the warrant committee plays. Second thing I'd mention is my career in investment banking. So after journalism, I spent 15 years working for two major investment banks in London and in New York. And that gave me a detailed understanding of how financial markets work, how to read financial statements, how to understand credit risk. And then the third thing, for the past almost 20 years, I've been an entrepreneur. I founded and grew several startup companies. So I know from painful experience often how important it is to make every penny count when you're running a business, and the value of examining trade-offs and managing resources very carefully. So those three things: the journalism, the investment banking, the entrepreneurship. And then, I'm also an active volunteer. I work with a number of nonprofits in food deliveries and working with refugee families. And I've served as a member of town meeting since last year.
What do you see as the town's biggest fiscal challenges, and how can the warrant committee help address them?
So as you may know, Adam, I'm also a member of Belmont Comprehensive Plan Advisory Committee. And my particular responsibility on that committee has been for overseeing the development of the economic development plan. So this particular thing is a topic that's pretty close to my heart. At its base, the core of the problem is simple to describe. It's not easy to solve, but it's simple to describe. 95% of Belmont's tax revenues come from residential property taxes. You can only increase them by 2.5% a year. Costs rise significantly faster than that. So there's a constant back and forth about, are we going to have less services, or are we going to have higher property taxes? And so although the warrant committee can't solve this problem, I think it can do two things. First of all, I think it can communicate these fundamentals clearly so that they're well understood by residents in Belmont. And I think although I've just described it quickly, I think it's not well understood by a lot of people. And the second thing is, I think we can start to change the narrative by focusing on how we can invest in diversifying the tax base, because it's going to take resources, but it is possible. And then secondly, how we can do more with less in terms of providing public services by using technology. And I think that's going to be a theme over the coming years as AI tools start to become much more powerful and adopted. So I think those two things we can, both on the cost side and on the revenue side, I think the warrant committee can have a significant impact.
How would you describe your methods of working and communicating in a group or committee setting?
So I like to listen a lot. One of my volunteer activities that I didn't talk about is I mentor tech startup students at MIT who are starting their own businesses. And listening is the key to being a successful mentor. And I also find it's often really useful to ask dumb questions because I think you learn a lot from that. Beyond that, I like to collaborate, build consensus, because on a committee like the warrant committee, you're developing trust relationships with people over a long period of time. So it's not a transactional based role. It's a role developing collaborative relationships, which are going to make the committee work well, smoothly over the longer term.
How would you go about making unpopular decisions and dealing with conflicts?
So I think you can separate these two things. Firstly, some level of disagreement is a good thing. It's valuable, provided it's polite, provided it's constructive and professional, because that's the way in which committees arrive at better outcomes. If we all agree with each other, then it tends to be a chorus of unanimity, and that's not really how we want to, I think, operate. So that's sort of disagreement, and then unpopular decisions are sometimes sometimes inevitable, especially given what we talked about a minute ago about Belmont's fiscal situation. We can't have everything we want, so there are going to be trade-offs, and sometimes those trade-offs are painful. And I think the important thing is to make sure that people understand the basis on which decisions were made. So it goes back to the communication that we talked about. And even though people do not agree with the outcome, at least they understand and maybe they can respect the decision that was made. So these are both are a normal course of business, really. I think you're going to have disagreements. You're going to have some decisions which are unpopular. But I think if they're managed and listened to in a professional way, I think they can be constructive.
And the next question goes right off of what you said, which is how do you think the warrant committee can best communicate with and advise the town in the short and long term?
So I think the warrant committee, just based on my short experience in town meeting, has taken some steps to communicate what the work they're doing through more digestible presentations and so on. And I think that's been very positive. But I think we need to do more of that. And perhaps we need to think about using non-traditional media to communicate with both town meeting and the public at large. So, AI tools make it very easy to design and produce really great graphics, to reduce things to not simple, not very digestible formats, and produce short form videos, perhaps that tell a story. Because I think it's important that we reach out to younger people in the community for whom these media are kind of the way they spend their time. And we want to draw them into some of the critical issues and the critical decisions that affect their lives. So I think we probably might want to think about more broadly about how do we take some of the material that we already have in abundance and make it digestible to people in different ways.
And anything else you'd like to add, Jonathan, about yourself or the subject matter?
No, I mean, yeah, not really. I think we covered most of it. I wanted to thank you for interviewing me and just say that if I'm selected, I'll do my best to serve the town and contribute as best as I can.
I appreciate you coming. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Adam. Thanks. Good night.
Good night. Next up, we're going to talk to Kevin Smith. Good evening, Kevin. If you could turn on your camera, and oh, here we go.
And the audio?
Excellent. Gotcha.
Okay.
Welcome.
Thank you.
So can you please provide some background on your education, work, and volunteer experience, which you believe would help the warrant committee, including financial skills you have?
Sure. I have a BA from Colgate, master's degree from Tufts. At both schools, my focus was on statistics and research design. I retired 2 years ago, but before that, I had spent actually over 40 years doing research work as a senior analyst at the American Institutes for Research, the New England Research Institutes, and at Research Triangle Institute. There I worked on a variety of NIH grants and federal contracts, most of which dealt with healthcare and chronic disease. At the beginning of my career, I did a bunch of consulting in the area. So I've done consulting before for the Corrections Department, Boston Assessing Department, and the Metropolitan Area Planning Council. My volunteer work is almost exclusively with the town. So I was recently reelected to a third term as a town meeting member from Precinct 4. And then I think you asked about finance background.
Mm-hmm.
That, on my part, is really limited to developing and monitoring $1 million budgets for grants and contracts. So I have a fair amount of experience with the financial end of the contracts and the grants, and that's where I get most of my experience there from.
Great. What do you see as the town's biggest fiscal challenges, and how can the warrant committee help address them?
Well, it's the same problem we've had for the past 40 years and may have for a few decades to come, and that is that the cost of town services in the schools exceeds 2.5%. And over time, it builds up a deficit, or one that we have to compensate for by having an override. So that's been the continual process around Belmont for quite a few years now. I think that there's two ways that the warrant committee in particular helps with that. And one is that they do projections of future revenue and spending. And that's how we keep a tab on what's likely to come when another override will be needed. And they also do studies of the cost effectiveness of new proposed projects. And I think that's an important aspect too. I applaud the select board for trying various means to raise more revenue, things like adjusting for parking permits and things like that. But I think we have to recognize in the long run, those things just are not going to generate revenue. And I think that the committee can play a role in determining how much revenue we're actually likely to get.
How do you describe your methods of working and communicating in a group or committee setting?
Well, my work has always involved groups. And they've often been broken into teams where I've been a team leader. And I think that's probably similar to the warrant committee subcommittees. In terms of working with the groups, I think the main thing is that what you have to do with a group is to identify what the real skills and expertise of the individuals are. Everybody in a group can make a contribution. Sometimes it's a little tough to figure out exactly what they can do. But as the group evolves, I think that's really what you have to do, is to find the appropriate roles for them.
And how do you go about making unpopular decisions and dealing with conflicts?
I think you have to keep the focus on the facts and the numbers. and not get distracted by side issues, which I think happens with a lot of these disputes. In general, I think you need to learn to let it ride. You have to recognize that someone isn't going to change their mind regardless of what kind of an effort you put forth. You have to know when to let it go. And I think that's the way of avoiding conflict. I also think that with the warrant committee isn't actually making final decisions. It's making recommendations and providing information. So I think there's somewhat less likelihood of conflict within the warrant committee. I may be wrong about that. But really, in the end, you're just one vote out of 13 or 15. I'm going to keep that in mind.
How do you think the warrant committee can best communicate with and advise the town in the long and the short term?
Well, one thing that I've been exasperated by is with all of the last minute amendments that go into the articles. Sometimes you look at these, you go through and you'll read the article and in some detail, maybe many pages long. And then 2 days later, you find that it's been amended and a whole bunch of things have been changed. And the article now looks like it came from the Epstein files. So I think what we need is a more timely summary of changes, if changes are going to be made to articles. And I know that's not always the warrant committee that's making those changes, but that's one thing that I think could be done to have the communication. Another recent development that I found very helpful, I can't remember if it's like 6 years ago or not, but in town meeting today, every article is prefaced with the votes of the select board and the warrant committee, which I found to be extremely helpful. The select board, you usually know what the select board is going to say. That's not much of a surprise. But every once in a while, you'll find that the vote in the warrant committee is like 8-6. And that really perks up my ears. And it does for, I know, the other members of town meeting. When that happens, we start this fishing expedition to see if we can find who the dissenters were on the warrant committee, if they happen to be in the building, or if we can get a hold of them online to get an explanation for what they objected to in that particular article. So I think it would be helpful if the warrant committee did a little summary in addition to giving their vote totals, but gave a little summary of what the dissent was, if there was dissent within a particular article. I think that would be very helpful to people. Another thing that I would say is that I found a lot of the videos to be very helpful, especially the one that Paul Richter did for the budget summary last June, which he was able to do in about 20 minutes and provided a whole bunch of information that would have taken forever to try to glean from just reading through all of the reports. So I think maybe more videos would be helpful in explaining things to people. And I want to toss in too, I think it would be helpful to get an explanation of the recent snafu with yard waste. So we know what happened there, and so we don't repeat that kind of a fiasco in the future.
Thank you. Is there anything else you want to add about yourself or about the committees?
I do. I just wanted to say that I know that the committee is advertised as a finance committee, finance in quotes. But I think its work actually goes well beyond that, and it does all sorts of other analyses, or could do more analyses that would be helpful. And in particular, I'm thinking of the analyses that were done of the overlay district projects and their costs and benefits. So I think that cost benefit analysis is something that could be extremely helpful. And that's one area where I think I could be especially helpful.
That's great. Well, thank you, Kevin. It's good
Thank you.
seeing you, and thank you for coming out tonight.
Yep, thank you.
Appreciate it. Next up, we're going to have Kathy Cohane.
Here, let me put my audio and video on.
I can see and hear you, Kathy. Good evening.
Great.
Thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you for
Um,
having me.
Could you please provide some background on your education, work, and volunteer experience, which you believe would help with the warrant committee, including financial skills you have?
Sure. I have an undergraduate degree in special ed and an MBA with a concentration in finance. I did teach special ed for a few years, but the bulk of my career has been in financial services. In a variety of leadership roles across a number of different disciplines, operations, product development, IT strategy, global risk and compliance. And the key theme in each of those roles was to drive transformation and change. I've been responsible for budgets in each of those roles, whether it be at the department level or the program level, including forecasting ROI, capital expenditures, cost benefit analysis, depreciation, and the like. My contributions beyond work have been in the town, and I'm an elected member of town meeting, precinct 2, have been since 2010. Elected member for 12 years as a library trustee. The majority of that time, I did serve as chair. Appointed positions, I've been a member of the Senior Tax Working Group and also on the Library Building Committee. On the building committee, it's still active. I've been part of the finance group for that project, managing, billing, ensuring that we have funds, and in fact, we are coming in under budget. I understand in terms of the role of the warrant committee, I understand the town budget process, certainly intimately involved in the development of the library budget and also overseeing it, also the project budget. I've been engaged a few times with facilities consolidation, so I have an insight into how the facilities organization works, where it's going, the demands and the needs. More so as a consumer, but I think it's an important part of the budget as we look ahead.
And what do you see as the town's biggest fiscal challenges, and how can the warrant committee help address them?
Supply is not meeting the demand. I think as many people have said, we're constrained by Prop 2.5. I appreciate some of the work that has already started with MyBack. I think the key is looking at long-range planning. Budgets may not be smooth on a go-forward basis, meaning that there may be a need if we set priorities and do the forecast for what the needs are, that we need to invest more in planning and development to support some of the zoning that we've passed. I think we need to be comfortable that there may be ebbs and flows in how we support budgets in different departments over the years because of the demands and the changes. I think we also need to be looking ahead. We're about to, in 2032, 2033, we will be paying down or meeting our pension obligations. So a great opportunity for us to be factoring in what those savings and how that money could be deployed. Appreciate that we're looking at commercial development. I think that's important. We need to make sure that we understand the costs associated with achieving that. It will put demands on our building department and planning, and we need to be prepared to support that. So I think it's really taking the long view, having a clear sense of priorities, and understanding that things will ebb and flow over the years as we address those priorities.
How would you describe your methods of working and communicating in a group or committee setting?
Well, if folks that have worked with me, I operate by the NSP, the no surprise policy. So I'm a collaborator by nature, like to drive to consensus, believe in transparency, and respect. We can agree to disagree, but I think important to hear all the voices, and then put everything together and make the best decisions for all of Belmont. And sometimes that's a challenge.
How would you go about making unpopular decisions and dealing with conflict?
This is my favorite question that I've heard you So I would hope not to make unpopular decisions, but rather make complex decisions that may not be viewed favorably by all. And I think it's process and content. I think what I see is people don't understand the process by which decisions are made. And so I think being clear about the process, these are the steps that we're going to take, being clear about decision rights, who gets to decide, and then making sure that the facts are shared and well understood. And then I think we've done our job. We will make difficult decisions. We will make complex decisions and recommendations. That's the nature of town meeting and the warrant committee in terms of recommendations. It's making sure that people understand the process and the content and the facts that underlie those decisions.
How do you think the warrant committee can best communicate with and advise the town in the short and long term?
Well, I think the Warren Committee has made a lot of changes over the last number of years, and I think there are some opportunities to improve. The report that they produce at the end of the or at the end at the start of town meeting that we all rely on. Is in fact, this year in particular, as somebody else noted, was received late. So I think there's an opportunity to have more interim reporting. I like the idea of the videos; those have been very well received. Even the one that you did, Adam, with the town clerk. I think we need to look at how are people getting their information and meeting them in those methods. Whether it be, I would leverage the voice more. I would do videos, social media, all those, and interim reporting so that it's not a final report at the end, as valuable as it is. I think we need to be educating people along the journey.
Is there anything else you'd like to add about yourself or about the committees?
Yeah, no, I would like to thank you for hosting this process. And I also like to thank the people that are rolling off the committee. I think there are a number of people who are retiring from the warrant committee who have given wonderful service to the town. And I've served the town in a variety of roles, and I'd love the opportunity to continue to serve on the warrant committee going forward. Thank you.
Well, great. Thanks, Kathy. Good to see you.
Likewise. Thank you.
Good night. Next up, we're going to be talking to Marie Warner, who is seeking a reappointment to the warrant committee. Good evening, Marie.
Good evening, Adam. Good to see you.
Good to see you as well. So, can you please provide some background on your education, work, and volunteer experience, which you believe would help the warrant committee, including financial skills you have?
Absolutely. Education-wise, I graduated BS with a double major in finance and computer science. My corporate career, has chiefly been in financial information and services technology, most recently with a subsidiary of Fidelity Investments. Earlier careers at Dow Jones in their systems and trading platform side, and Standard & Poor's financial research and bond rating company, also doing technology, et cetera. So capital formation, buy and sell side, finance throughout my career. I've held leadership roles in those organizations and have managed budgets as large as 150 million in my corporate work. Other things to consider is I'm a member of 100 Women in Finance, which is actually many more than 100 women. It's a global network of women professionals in the finance industry with a goal to empower women either through mentoring women in the finance industry earlier in the arc of their career, and women worldwide through microloans and investment. I also have, in addition to my corporate work, I am a founder of a Belmont business. I'm a founder of Boston Women Connect, which is a membership community of professional and entrepreneurial women. I've served 4 years as a member of the Warrant Committee, and during that time, I have chaired the Human Services and Municipal Services subcommittees. Other contributions made, I conducted research and conversations for voter compacts, talking to Arlington, looking at what Higham has done, other organizations who, to support overrides, have entered into voter compacts to promise when the next override would occur and where funding growth will be curtailed. So initiated some work in that area. And I suggested the reformatting of the most recent annual report to kind of highlight more of the drivers, et cetera. So the most recent report that was presented in town meeting. Other committee involvement in town is I'm co-chair of the Economic Development Advisory Committee. And there are certainly some complementary things, complementary drivers for both the Warrant Committee and the EDAC that we work on. And while not currently serving in town meeting, I have been a town meeting member of Precinct 6, elected in 2021 and 2023. And lastly, although it's not directly related to the finance, to echo your opening statements, I find volunteering and contributing to community extremely rewarding and interesting, and I volunteer at the Benton Library.
Great, thank you. What do you see as the town's biggest fiscal challenges, and how can the Warrant Committee help address them?
This has been echoed by many of the other candidates, but briefly, expenses exceeding our revenue in combination with a small commercial base, which places the tax burden on our residents, the 95-5 split. So that is certainly a challenge. It's one that the town and the schools have addressed by continuing to control spending growth, doing the trade-offs. We need to foster new commercial development, although that is certainly going to take place over a longer time span, and also do what we can to support our existing businesses to ensure that they are successful, keep our community vital. More specifically, I think that we can explore doing more assertive in seeking grants. I'm impressed with how far our information technology group has been able to go with securing grants to upgrade networks, et cetera. So I think that is an area that we could take a look in to address the challenges. And, while the Warrant Committee is an advisory role versus a finance role, as far as the town meeting eventually approves budgets, I think that we can address and help advance some of those solutions by being clearer about trends, where we stand, and the process to making decisions, which to looking ahead could be unpopular, of looking at the trade-offs of where you need to spend your money when you simply do not have that much of it to do all that we want to do.
Can you describe your methods of working and communicating in a group or committee setting?
Sure. To quote Steve Covey, I believe in seeking first to understand, then to be understood. So to do that, I like to solicit opinions. I like to actively listen, ask questions, and collaborate, ultimately to achieve a common objective. That may be the timely completion of a warrant report, where you're working with your subcommittee members, and you're looking at the process of delegating and planning and pulling everybody together to an end goal. Or it could be what we do on a regular basis in the Warrant Committee with debating, discussing different topics, but listening first and speaking later.
How do you go about making unpopular decisions and dealing with conflicts?
I, like Kathy, really like this question, but I would like to reframe it just to reflect the engagement of the Warrant Committee, because it's manifested in a couple different ways. We discuss and we debate different topics, whether it's looking at a cost ROI, cost benefit, looking at trends, and making a overall, as a whole committee, maybe voting even unanimously for a decision that would be viewed as unpopular to the trade-offs of what we can invest in. It can also be that you're in debate with your colleagues, your opinion is not the majority viewpoint. Is that unpopular? I don't know, but it's certainly not the majority opinion. I think I think as much as some of the earlier candidates said, it's that discussion of those differences that I think makes for a stronger decision. You have to have the facts behind you, what the basis of the decision is, and to go forward with it. Ultimately, there's not the conflict in such a word in the warrant committee, since many of these things are decided with a vote, and you move on. So, and that is, again, you advance to what you're going to do, which is to advise the town meeting in all these matters, or town meeting and the town. One of the members of the school committee, not on the warrant committee, stated to me that they observed that while they may disagree with my opinions sometimes, that it was clear that I was willing to listen, be open, and open to changing my mind. And I think that that's also a very important part of resolving any particular potential conflicts, is you must be open to changing opinion, compromising, and moving ahead.
How do you think the warrant committee can best communicate with and advise the town in the short and the long term?
I think that we've gone far in making the annual report more palatable, both in it is briefer, and the work that Chair Paul Richter did in the video, I think, has been very helpful. So I think that continuing that, but doing more frequent engagement with town meeting. For example, to have that same kind of summary after every budget summit, so that the first time a town meeting member may be hearing about the drivers or the potential risks is not in June when they're taking a look at the report, but they would have heard about it in the budget, the 4 budget summits that occur during the year. So that is one thing we could do, and something that we could do in short term. In addition to that, I think that it'd be more meaningful to town residents as well as town meeting if we took a look at the departments and explain what their drivers and their full spend. For example, the DPW has their operating budget, the staff, things that they do day in, day out, but they also have a part of the capital budget that goes to buying new equipment, etc. That is part of the work that they do, and they have an enterprise funds, water and sewer enterprise funds, that are generating revenue. And I'd like to see us do a better job of saying this is the whole piece of what the DPW is. Other things that I think on a longer term we could do that support some of those unpopular decisions, maybe taking a look at trends, taking a look at where we stand compared to other towns more, and just taking a look at how we compare now versus before. I think that we can do a better job in explaining how we got from a spend 5 years ago to where we are now, the drivers, and what's changed and what's going to continue to change. And to do that not only in written form, but video, etc. Or there's enough town meeting members that perhaps we should adopt different precincts and join their caucus and be part of on an informal basis, giving information and answering questions.
Is there anything else you'd like to add about yourself or the committee work?
Just to thank you and thank the council for this process, the transparent one. I listening to and I re-listened to it trying to add up the years of volunteer work that the council and your contribution represent. And we're talking about, this is not an ageist comment, but we're talking about many hundreds of years actually of different experiences on committees, town meeting, etc. So it is an impressive group, and I'm happy to be part of the process. I believe I've made a contribution to the warrant committee, and I hope to continue in the years ahead. I want to thank you.
Great. Well, thank you so much for coming tonight, Maria. Appreciate it. Nice talking to you.
Thank you.
And our final interviewee for this evening is going to be Timothy Fallon, who has applied for both Warrant Committee and Bylaw Review Committee. And after this, I will briefly wrap up, and then we will take it to the 19th.
Hey, Adam, how are you?
Good, Tim. Nice to see you.
You as well. Thank you for taking the time to speak with me tonight.
No, looking forward to it. So thank you for cleaning up tonight. So could you please provide some background on your education, work, and volunteer experience, which you believe would help the Warrant Committee, including financial skills you have?
Of course. I am a 2002 graduate of Boston College, where I majored in marketing with a minor in finance. I am a 2008 graduate of Villanova University School of Law. I have a JD. I'm a member of the bar since 2009. I have worked as the managing partner of a small law firm in Lexington since 2016. I have 5 partners and a number of staff. In terms of volunteering, I have been a resident of Belmont since 2009, and I've volunteered my time as a coach for both my daughters in various athletics, including soccer and lacrosse, for many years. And now that my eldest daughter is going to be a rising freshman at Belmont High School, I have a little more time on my hands, and I'm looking for additional volunteer opportunities. I think this would be a great opportunity for me to apply some of the skills that I've acquired over the years as a lawyer in a way that I think would help the town.
On both the Bylaw Review and the Warrant Committee, you're saying?
Yeah. Yes, correct. Yes.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I just think that with respect to, and I had the occasion to witness many others, very well qualified people speak. I think that with respect to the Bylaw Review Committee, part of my job as a litigator is to read and interpret statutes and bylaws on a daily basis. So I'm very comfortable reviewing those, and I'd be more than happy to apply my skills in any way that I can to help the town.
What do you see as the town's biggest fiscal challenges, and how can the Warrant Committee help address them?
Certainly. I think my answer is probably a variation on the theme that I think most other applicants have identified. It's just the fact that the tax revenues derive primarily from residents, and there's a lack of a robust commercial base. And I think that's a longstanding challenge. And I think that creative solutions are needed to remedy that issue.
How would you describe your method of working and communicating in a group or committee setting?
Sure. I am, as I indicated, the managing partner of a small law firm in Lexington. We have a number of meetings. As the managing partner, I am the facilitator of the discussions that my partners and I engage in. I'm also I like to collaborate with others and the methods that I employ in group settings.
And how would you go about making unpopular decisions and dealing with conflicts?
As a litigator, conflict is inherent in my job. I'm very comfortable listening to others while maintaining a position and communicating what I believe in a calm, cool, collected, and professional manner. making unpopular decisions, I think that it's very important to allow other people to feel heard and to allow them to express their opinions. And I think that the more information that people are able to bring to the surface, including their expertise and different experiences in life, I think that allows for robust discussion, and usually it allows the best decisions to rise to the surface.
How do you think the bylaw review committee should operate when a bylaw change is proposed by a person or other committee?
I think similar to what Max Hoare said earlier, I think that I'm candidly not quite as familiar with the workings in terms of how that process is, but I think that like Max said, allowing people the opportunity to giving notice and the opportunity to be heard, I think is imperative.
And what makes you want to serve on the bylaw review committee, should that be your destination?
Sure. As indicated previously, I think that I'm very comfortable reviewing and interpreting statutes and bylaws. That's what I do on a daily basis as an attorney and a litigator. And I think that that's my answer.
How do you think the warrant committee and the bylaw review committee can best communicate with and advise the town in the short and the long term?
Again, I'm not quite as familiar with how that process works, but that's something that I'm interested in learning, and I think that proactive communication is paramount. I also think that with the advent of AI tools, I think that the distillation of information in ways that are easy to digest and are very efficient would be a key feature going forward.
And is there anything else you'd like to add about yourself or either of the committees?
Adam, I just say, as I indicated, my wife and I have lived in Belmont. We've been residents since 2009. My two daughters have been enrolled in Belmont Public Schools for a number of years. As I indicated, my eldest is a rising freshman. The town has given us an awful lot, and I think that if I can give back in a small way by volunteering my time and utilizing my expertise as a litigator, I'd be more than happy to do so.
I appreciate that. Thank you for coming, Tim.
Thanks, Adam. Take care.
Take care. So as I said, just to wrap up, those are the applicants for this evening. We have one last applicant, Anthony Fitzgerald for Bylaw Review Committee, who will be interviewing on August 19th at 7 p.m., which is the start of the Moderator Advisory Council's next meeting. So if you want to see the last interview, you come to the August 19th Moderator Advisory Council interview. The link is on the website on Zoom, and then we will do that interview and then go into the meeting where there will be a discussion, because I want to hear from the Moderator Advisory Council what they think of all of these people that we've interviewed over the last 3 evenings. I want to thank all of the applicants for making my decision extremely difficult, because it's going to be, we have way too many great people for the seats that are available, but I will definitely put my mind to it, and I look forward to hearing from everybody. Keep in mind, the public comment will be open till August 26th, so feel free to email me at moderator@belmont-ma.gov. You can also watch the Moderator Advisory Council's discussion and their advice about it, and the decisions will be made by the end of August. So thank you all for coming this evening.